And we are live. It's Dr. J here in the house with Evan Brand. Really excited. We are back doing our live podcast. Really excited to be back in the saddle. Evan, how are we doing, man? What's going on?
Oh, doing really well. I'm excited to talk about stress. My wife, she woke up this morning and she's like, my jaw's tight. Was I grinding my teeth last night? And maybe you need to talk about that today. So I thought, okay, everyone is stressed. There's a lot on everyone's plate, but it's really how you respond to it that really determines whether it makes you and you become someone and something and you get success out of your stress, or do you just get frazzled and burned out and you resort to alcohol and tobacco and other addictions, chocolate and wine and whatever else to cope with that? And I think there's a lot healthier coping mechanisms for stress, for burnout, for feelings of overwhelm. And you and I have done this for years clinically. We've helped people through the toughest of cases. You and I have taken the huge load on our shoulders of, trying to be the helper, be the healer with someone that's struggling. And that's a lot. That's a heavy toll on us. So there's things that you and I do personally, and then there's things that you and I do clinically. And then we've got some studies to kind of verify, what we're seeing.
100%. So when I look at stress, you have the actual stress issue, like whatever that stress issue is, right? And so feeling anxious or feeling stressed about an issue is a good thing, right? Part of the reason that is there is to get you motivated to get off your butt to solve the problem. So I always look at the issue and I'm like, all right, why do I feel stressed? Usually you haven't closed the loop yet. I call it closing the loop. This problem, right? You take action to resolve the problem goes away. That's the closed loop, right? And so you have a lot of people with open loops, meaning they have a problem out there and they haven't even figured out the solution. So when it comes to being healthy and having good neurotransmitters, good adrenal function, good healthy diet and lifestyle habits, good anti-inflammatory type of environment, nutrient dense foods coming in, good nutrition, your ability to process that stressor when it hits you, it's not going to hit you as hard. It's not going to knock you off your pedestal. Two, you're going to be able to adapt and you're going to be able to think clearly and troubleshoot whatever the issue is. And so I always look at a problem. I say, okay, got it. How do I close the loop on that? What's the action item to execute that? So I always just kind of get clear, have a list. What are the things I can do and set in motion to resolve the issue? I think it's really important. If you just dust it away, the healthiest adrenal glands, eventually it's going to eat away at you because you haven't closed the loop. So always think about closing the loop on your issues. Number two, get healthier so these things don't bug you as much, right? If you have good levels of B6, good levels of magnesium, you're sleeping adequately, you have good blood sugar stability, good amino acids, it's going to allow you to be able to process it. You're not going to activate that fight or flight part of your nervous system that shuts down the frontal cortex. It activates the reptilian brainstem part of the brain that's all about fight or flee, fight or flee, fight or flee. And so the more you can keep this kind of reptilian brain from being activated, and then you can use that frontal cortex, you'll be able to sit back, be calm, troubleshoot the issue, and close the loop.
And this is hard if you've got toxins, if you've got Lyme, different
Mm-hmm.
infections. I mean, we've seen in the literature that certain infections and toxins basically decrease the blood flow to that front part of the brain. So you become a monkey. You do become
Yep.
primitive. As you mentioned, this reptile brain kicks in and you can't make good decisions and you certainly can't comprehend the future. You get stuck living in the day, the hour, the minute with that stress. And when you say close the loop, I think that resonates for a lot of people, but many people are afraid to close the loop because this means that they have to end a friendship that's toxic. They have to end a marriage that's failing. They have to fire someone that they don't like. They have to quit their job because they have a bad boss. So, closing the loop sounds so simple, but this could be a huge roadblock, for people. And I've seen it to where you've got a woman eating perfectly. She's doing amazing with her supplements. But for example, here's a case study. She's in an open relationship and she's miserable and she hates it and
Yeah.
she's jealous and her husband's with these other women and she doesn't want him to be. And so there's issues there. I don't freaking care how much ashwagandha this lady pops. She's not
Yep.
going to supplement out of this situation. That's intense. And there is a place for closing the loop, and you can't supplement your way out of a situation like that.
Yeah, in relationship, it's always good to have healthy boundaries, right? It's like good fences make good neighbors, right? Having good emotional boundaries and how a relationship operates, right? If your family's asking 10 times of you, then 10 times of you, then they help you on the backside, right? This kind of parasitic give and take that. So you always have to have clear boundaries. I think it's a really, really important one. There's an awesome book out there by Henry Cloud called Boundaries. That's a really good one when I see patients in relationships. It may not even be a relationship with their spouse. It could be a relationship with family or friends where there's just kind of a parasitic element of people asking many multiples from that person, then that person's providing back. And there should always be a give and take, right? I always tell patients, like, when you play catch, I throw the ball, you throw the ball, right? Emotionally, there's a give and a take, and it's back and forth, and it's equal. When I start throwing the ball, you don't throw it back. I run back over, get the ball, come back, throw it again. That's very depleting, right? You miss the give and take. And so you got to make sure good, healthy boundaries are there. Also, with relationships, it's always better to try to restructure, kind of reboundify the relationship than just exit. I think exiting a lot of relationships is just it's an easy way out. It's you just go someone and go on to your life. I think it's always better to see if you can repair or give people an opportunity to repair and get on the same page and see what happens from there. But either way, right? You have all these emotional issues. Get healthy. If you're afraid to deal with these issues right now, put them on the back burner. Know you have to deal with them. Adjust your expectations of healing and try to get healthier so then you have better energy, better focus, better calmness to address whatever the problem is.
Yep, this is great advice. And it's uncomfortable. And there are situations that are going to be intense, but I would encourage you just to go face first with those. Now, if you have trouble making eye contact with these people, some of that's related to brain chemistry too. I see a lot of people that when they get in a stressful situation, they just shut down. They look down, they look away, they can't face the person, and therefore they can't fully express themselves. That's usually tied into low GABA. And so we can't measure GABA on the organic acids, but we can measure serotonin, we can measure dopamine, we can measure endorphin. So before you and I go into a few of these studies and solutions, let's just give a little backstory on some of this. And so, when I had gut infections down in Texas, I had tons of anxiety. It wasn't me. It was not my personality. It was the gut bugs. And when we looked at my brain chemistry, my serotonin was low. My dopamine was low. I had issues to fully get myself motivated. I still pushed through, but I didn't wake up necessarily with that spark like I wanted. And so I know personally, and you and I've seen 1,000+ times clinically, the low brain chemistry problem, it's epidemic and it's only gotten worse. Even in the last 10 years, you and I have been looking at these labs.
100%. And so again, there are some people that have been on board here with us for years listening, and they're super advanced. And so just kind of out of the gate, we're going to just give a brief overview of foundational things. Okay. So first thing out of the gates, I'm pulling up my phone because I just changed my whole house water filtration here. And Evan and I were talking about it earlier today. So check this out. I'm going to hold up my phone. So you can see here, the clean one on the left, that's a brand new filter. I
Put that all the way up
one
to the
today.
webcam. We can hardly see it. Go closer.
Yeah. So the one on the left, right? The white one, that's the new one. That's the one that was in there for the last 3 months. I mean, that is just nasty, dirty, and gross.
That's
and again,
in 3 months?
That's a post filter. So it went through a massive pre-filter, went through the huge carbon-based filter, and then went through that afterwards. And it was dirty. It is nasty. I actually have it over on my bar countertop over there. So pretty freaking gross. So what does that mean? It means prioritize good, clean, filtered water. If you don't have a high water filter system, we'll put some links down below to the ones that we personally use. But in general, at least get a good quality glass water, a Topo Chico, a Gerald's Diner, a Perrier, a Mountain Valley. One out of a good glass bottle is going to be excellent during the day. And then I definitely recommend getting a whole house water filter once you're in a place where you can do it. Some people may be in an apartment, they may be in temporary housing. You can always get an under-the-counter filter. Or there are even some temporary ones that actually go on top that still filter water out pretty well. But that's pretty nasty. And so 70% of your body's water in regards to all the liquids. So you need good, clean, filtered water without all the junky chemicals, maybe drugs, maybe pesticide runoff, mold runoff, who knows? So the first thing is kind of get your water right. Comments there, Evan?
Yeah, I mean, this is important because when you're stressed, you're going to be dehydrated. You're burning through everything. You're burning through hydration. You're burning through B vitamins. You and I were looking at papers on B vitamins and magnesium for helping with stress. So we know that when you're burning the candle, and most people in the modern world are, you need good water. And the tap water, you can look up EWG and put in your zip code.
Yep.
It's scary. I mean, almost every single city has insane high levels of trihalomethanes, which are carcinogenic. As you mentioned, pesticide residue, pharmaceutical drugs like heart medications, beta blockers, anti-anxiety, antidepressant medications. You know what's scary? There are studies now being done on bays, some of these inland bodies of water, And there was one down, I think it was in Florida near Miami, Biscayne Bay is one of these most famous bays. They have an issue now where all of the fish, I'll see if I can pull it up, they now have drugs in them. And it's because of the runoff from people. So let me pull this up because this is pretty crazy. This actually came out over the summer this year, and I think it's pretty shocking, and most people don't have a clue.
Yeah, there was that famous study on atrazine up at UC Berkeley showing the frogs were essentially having reproductive organ issues, like major. I think they were almost becoming like asexual and their sex organs were like switching. Some kind of weird dynamic was happening based on the hormone like disrupting compounds in these pesticides. And that was
God.
atrazine.
Did this pull up my screen here?
Oh, yeah.
The screen share?
I'm going to share with you. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah. So here it is. Pharmaceutical drugs showing up in fish from South Florida waters. Yeah. So it's Biscayne Bay. And, you've got 2.5 million Miami residents, and a lot of those people are on pharmaceutical drugs, and then they're peeing that out. And then some of that runoff is ending up in the water supply. And then that runs off into the bay. And then the fish then accumulate those drugs. So they did a 3-year study. They found Valium. They found antibiotics. They found blood pressure medication in the blood and tissue of bonefish. One fish showed 17 different drugs. So here you are thinking you're getting your fish clean. Oh, I'm going to eat fresh fish. It's like, well, you're looking at antidepressants, prostate treatment medication, antibiotics, pain relievers. That's insane. Now they're saying good news is that this is a catch and release species, but what about the other fish that people are eating? So, I don't know.
Absolutely.
I don't eat a ton of fish.
No, absolutely. So, I mean, getting your water clean, getting your food quality clean, organic food. Here's the atrazine study. They were talking about it here at a UC Berkeley press release back in 2002, but it was April 16th in the National Academy of Sciences, UC Berkeley. Essentially what happened here, the frogs were they were becoming hermaphrodites. They were having both sex organs. So you could see testes here, ovaries, and you could see abnormal gonads in male exposure to this type of frog. The frogs have become hermaphrodites, both male and female, due to the hormonal exposure. So you can see because the atrazine environment, basically an uncontrolled experiment, there needs to be no atrazine-free environment. Talking about, because herbicide's been used for 40 years in 80 countries, its effect on sexual development in male frogs could be one of many factors in the global decline of amphibians. So crazy, right? And we're talking about lowest levels of 0.1 part per billion. So this is real. So that's why I'm saying out of the gate, easiest thing out of the gate, clean water, good water filter, organic food, and then outside of that, right, then we could talk about blood sugar stability, at least a pound worth of protein at every meal. I think it's really good. Making sure you have good fats that aren't all PUFA-based fats, seed, nut oil-based fats, refined vegetable oils, keeping it good, healthy, saturated fats, coconut oil, avocado, olive, cold press, most of your good quality fats coming from more stable, saturated fat sources. This is great. And then after that, you just adjust the carbs for your activity level and kind of your metabolic type, meaning do you need to lose weight? Are you kind of a skinnier person? Are you really active? Right? The more active and the more at an optimal weight you are, the more carbohydrates you can handle. So you got to adjust it. It's not a one size fits all on that.
Let's transition, talk about cortisol.
Yeah.
This is important for stress. When people think stress, most people think cortisol. And you and I have run so many of these, probably more than anybody. I pulled up my screen if you want to pull it up.
Absolutely.
This is a Dutch panel that you and I run on almost everyone in regards to hormonal health. And what you're looking for is really the health of the cortisol pattern. So you could see here, this particular female, she was absolutely exhausted. You could see for people on audio, you're missing out, but you could go back to Justin Health YouTube channel and you could watch this video if you're listening on the audio and you want to see the some of the screen shares. But you want to basically charge your smartphone battery first thing in the morning, get a full charge, and that full charge lasts throughout the day. But in this case, this woman, her cortisol pattern was completely shot. She was below range the entire day, except for nighttime. She perked up just a little bit. And that could have been like maybe she was on her phone, she was watching a horror movie or a scary TV show or something and artificially boosted her cortisol. But this is the real issue. So no matter how clean your water is, if your cortisol pattern looks like this, you're going to be absolutely exhausted and you are going to deal with stress terribly. You're not going to deal with stress. How many people are you seeing like this now versus maybe 5 years ago? Do you feel like it's becoming more common or no?
Yeah, I mean, it's always tough because I'm seeing a large percent of the population that have chronic health issues, right? So I'm always going to
Yeah.
get that slice that's going to be significant. But yeah, this type of pattern is a big deal, right? Because not only is it's a sign of you being chronically stressed and depleted, but this is a reverse cortisol rhythm. So you're going to be tired during the day, and it's going to be harder for you to relax at night and recharge. So it makes it really difficult to get that good regenerative sleep wake cycle going. And so these are the people that have a hard time sleeping at night and getting and reestablishing those good, healthy lifestyle patterns that should be in place. That's what makes it really tough. It's one thing if you're just tired, but you can work on getting sleep and recharging. If we can't, and then also this person, I guarantee you, their stress handling capacity is going to be just at max. So they're just going to like flip out on their kids, flip out on their friends at the simplest thing, or they'll just be in overwhelmed and they'll just be in flight, constantly ignoring and sweeping all their problems under the rug because their capacity is so low.
Yeah, and I know this particular female here was incredibly histamine intolerant. Someone in the comments said, "Let's talk about histamine." So there is a component to that, and in her case, she was sensitive to everything: chemicals, fragrances, EMF, food. So this was a pretty sick middle-aged woman. But I mean, everything was completely crashed here, and so you and I wanted to talk about some of the herbs. Now, if we jump right into one of these papers on what's called magnolia and philodendron, this is a
Yep.
blend actually, and it's usually under the patented name Relora. Some of the professional products you and I use contain Relora. Now, this is a good option for reducing stress and anxiety, but the problem is you really don't just want to start taking supplements without the clinical data, because if you look back at that woman and the cortisol pattern is completely crashed, if we were to go to something like Relora, I would say this is not an appropriate thing to use, because if you look at the results of a study of supplementing Relora for 4 weeks, the salivary cortisol was 18% lower in the Relora group. So what that means is they saw less stress, less tension, less depression, way less anger, less fatigue, less confusion, and a higher mood. But would you say in her case that's not appropriate because she was so crashed already? We don't want an 18% reduction in cortisol.
Now, the question is what type of people were in that group? Because a lot of these adaptogens, if someone's low, like ashwagandha, for instance, there's studies on ashwagandha helping to lower cortisol as well as increase cortisol. So I would
Right.
say that the adaptogens are probably not like a drug where they're going to suppress. If someone's already low, they're probably going to more help that HPA axis kind of adapt. Now, there are certain
True.
adaptogens like ginseng or licorice that may be more stimulatory. Even if someone's high, it may still overstimulate. So you got to be careful with overstimulating ones. But usually, ones like holy basil, magnolia, ashwagandha tend to be more adaptogenic. So I'd be curious about that, what that sample size was. Were they kind of higher cortisol people? If they were higher
Yeah.
cortisol people, then that would totally make sense that the herb was working to kind of bring things back into balance. Does it say it all in
Yes.
that study?
We assessed salivary cortisol and psychological mood in 56 subjects, 35 women, 25 or 35 men, 21 women. They were screened for moderate stress. So that would have been interesting if they would have came in and did a cortisol panel on all these people and showed the before and after. But that's okay because you and I've seen this a lot clinically. And as you described, we like to just give the nutrients to let the body do what it needs to do. Meaning, we're not coming in
Correct.
with Cortef necessarily and cranking her up.
Right.
We're giving HPA axis support, and the body can figure this out on its own in many, many cases.
And the fact that a lot of these symptoms improved, it's probably not a low cortisol person making their
Hmm.
cortisol lower because those symptoms would get worse, right? They would actually, they
Yeah,
wouldn't
the
be
fatigue.
improving, right? So the fact that they're coming down, there's probably an improvement. So I imagine these people had higher cortisol patterns to begin with. And that would make sense. But that's why we don't even go all in on just any herb, right? We're making these diet changes, we're getting the inflammation down, we're increasing nutrient density. We're also providing all the cofactors to help your adrenals function better, whether it's vitamin C, whether it's pantothenic acid B5, whether it's B6. I have one study in here talking about B6 and magnesium actually works better than magnesium alone. And part of that is you need cofactors for these nutrients to work better. And a lot of your brain chemicals actually have cofactors for a lot of these conversions of serotonin and dopamine and norepinephrine to happen. You need a lot of cofactors. And then we can kind of go more into the category of like, well, if your diet's crummy and you're eating a lot of sugar or inflammatory foods, you can actually deplete those cofactors more. Or if you have mold exposure, you may be depleting your B vitamins and your folate and your B12 and your B6 for methylation purposes, because that mold exposure is revving up those methylation pathways. You may be utilizing more of your N-acetylation and glucuronidation pathways for glutathione and N-acetylcysteine, right? Your sulfur aminos may be depleted as well. And also, chronic stress does deplete sulfur because you need sulfur to actually activate dopamine to norepinephrine. And so when you look at those pathways, the more stressed you get, you will actually deplete sulfur. And when you don't have enough sulfur, if you have mold exposure coming in, you see how you have a toxin on this side and then you have stress over here, and you're kind of burning that candle at both ends.
Yep. Let's hit ashwagandha.
Yeah.
And then I know you got like B vitamin, magnesium one that's pretty interesting.
Mhm.
So ashwagandha, we hear a lot about it. I'd say it's probably the most popular adaptogenic herb. I mean, you see it in grocery stores now at the checkout counter. I've seen ashwagandha gummies and ashwagandha pills, which I think in general is good. I have seen at the high dose, and I have seen chronic usage in some people. It gives them a little bit of flatness where they just don't have as much emotions. I've just seen, if you look on Reddit, there's several threads. If you type in like ashwagandha anhedonia, this is basically just the loss of pleasure in life. So there's some people that are reporting either high dose or long-term use of ashwagandha. They just sort of become numb. So I think you need to watch out for that. But in general, you and I are cycling on and off of these things, and we're rotating out of protocols, and not necessarily always in isolation. This for a couple months, but if they have excessive fatigue, maybe we're adding in some rhodiola. So we'll look at that in a minute too. But the long story short is many, many papers on ashwagandha. This is just one, but you're always going to see an anti-anxiety activity, and you're always going to see anti-stress. It's going to improve symptoms of depression and insomnia, and it's going to help primarily by modulating the HPA axis and also the sympathetic adrenal medullary axis, as well as GABAergic and serotonergic pathways, meaning that it may help boost GABA, which calms you down. It may help boost serotonin, which helps you become less irritable, less anxious, and you may sleep better.
100%. I just swallowed some GABA and some glycine right now, some amino acids that also help with stress. Love my GABA.
I took some
love
right
my
before.
glycine.
Yeah, right before we jumped on, I told you about those gummies that my wife found. So I had a couple. It was like an ashwagandha, rhodiola. I think there might have been some maca too. But so that was good. So here's another paper on ashwagandha. This was a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled, which is the best type that you want. And they said, compared to placebo, significant reduction in what they're calling the Hamilton Anxiety Rating Scale. So significant reduction in that, and a near significant reduction in the depression, anxiety, and stress scale. Also, reductions in morning cortisol, testosterone levels increased in males. So you and I didn't mention that, but stress, no surprise, stress is going to negatively affect your hormones too. Stress is going to reduce testosterone. That's going to affect your sex drive. So when you see that Viagra is being passed out like candy now, you wonder what all is going into that. Stress is a big component.
Yeah, we just saw a major study come out last month looking at the effectiveness of antidepressants, and there showed to be, no long-term benefit with a lot of these antidepressants. I think that was a Lancet study out of UK. And so we kind of look at a lot of the antidepressants. We look at the mechanism that's happening there. We know there's data on things like tryptophan and 5-HTP and B6 helping. So there definitely is like a depletion theory where people are chronically stressed, and then as they are stressed, they do deplete their serotonin and they deplete their dopamine. We see that on organic acid tests. But the medications for it that are blocking these reuptake ports, trying to accumulate more serotonin between the synapses, may not be the right school of thought. And there are a lot of doctors and people and pharmacologists looking in the direction of just brain inflammation. And so everything we do in functional medicine is about reducing inflammation. So when we give this nutrient or this herb, we're doing so many things in the background, diet and lifestyle wise, to reduce inflammation. There's so many variables we're moving. So it's so hard in functional medicine world to do a double-blind placebo-controlled trial, because in those trials, you have to typically control a variable or two at once. If you control 10 variables at once, 12 variables, there's just too many things moving in one direction to know which one was the deal breaker. And like in this one study over here, I'll show you, where they looked at tyrosine supplementation under stress for cognitive demands. I'm going to pull this trial up here. So this was interesting right here. And this is kind of why we like to test and not guess, right? Assessing over guessing. So they looked at dopamine, tyrosine, which is a building block for dopamine, right? It goes phenylalanine, then tyrosine, and then it goes L-dopa to dopamine, and then under stress, dopamine can get converted to norepinephrine, and then you actually use a lot of sulfur from dopamine to norepinephrine. But they talked over here that the potential of using tyrosine supplementation to treat clinical disorders seems limited in benefits. But then it talks about down here, tyrosine does seem to effectively enhance cognitive performance, particularly in short-term stressful or cognitive demanding situations. We conclude tyrosine is an effective enhancer of cognitive function, but only when neurotransmitter function is intact and dopamine or norepinephrine is temporarily depleted. So if we have some functional deficiencies, and we may see that based on a stress profile, or functionally we may see it on a cortisol rhythm test, and we may see it with an organic acid panel looking at vanylmandrolate, looking at homovanillate, and we may see some of these markers either go overly high or overly low, which shows that there's some significant depletion going on here. And so you could see that the nutrient tyrosine tend to work better when people actually had a depletion.
Well, you made me think of something, and we've probably talked about this before, but how crazy is it to think about trying to do a proper, supposedly double-blind, placebo-controlled study? Because think of Sally, who woke up and had a GMO gluten bagel with vegetable oil
Yes.
instead of real butter for breakfast. She takes the antidepressant, or she takes the herb. And then you've got Johnny over here who had a grass-fed ribeye for breakfast, and he took the same medication.
Bingo.
They're going to get totally freaking different results. So you and I were talking about this before we hit record, but it's so hard to actually look at and appreciate a study that's going to give you that outcome, because like, what time do they go to bed? Are they all going to bed at 10 p.m. or is Sally staying up till 2 a.m.? No wonder she didn't get relief from the antidepressant or the antidepressant herb or whatever. So it's like, my God, when you really break apart using the functional medicine lens, you break apart the sleep, the stress, the diet, the family relationships. Like, how many of those people are going through a divorce during the study? Those are the 7 people that didn't get relief from depression, right? So it's very difficult. And I think that's why you and I can look at these studies, and there's other people that will talk about studies on podcasts. But the reality is, when you have the clinical experience, that's what makes the difference, because we're coaching people through some of the lifestyle measures, the sleep, the nutrition, the water. We're not just throwing the herb and saying, good luck. It's just not going to be that effective.
Yeah. And also, like we just mentioned earlier, we got to test, right? We don't want to guess, we want to assess. And this is why someone may have no experience with the supplement and say it's joke, it's snake oil, and someone's like, no, I had a really great experience. Because there's one, you may not need that nutrient as much. If you need something more than someone else, right, then you may have a better benefit. But also, a lot of nutrients work synergistically, right? And so this one study looks at magnesium with B6, and they found in this study that magnesium, magnesium supplementation alone regards subjects with severe extreme stress. The study provides clinical support for the greater benefit of magnesium combined with B6. So both groups did well. They had a magnesium group and a magnesium with B6, and they found the magnesium with B6 actually did better. And so a lot of nutrients are synergistic. I mean, I think most people will benefit from magnesium just because a large percent of the population are depleted in it. Our food supply becomes less and less on it. It's one of those core nutrients it's hard to get enough of. So I think it can't hurt to ever take some of these core nutrients, but a lot of these nutrients are synergistic. And so magnesium is very important for stress and relaxation. But B6 also helps with, it's an important cofactor for all of your brain chemicals to work. Very important cofactor. And it helps a lot of your neurotransmitters like serotonin and GABA and dopamine and adrenaline all work and convert in the brain. So it's important that you can't just ever rely on one nutrient. You got to look at the whole thing. And it's always better to assess versus guess too.
Yeah. And when you click on the podcast and it says helping with stress or feeling overwhelmed, you may think of us talking about meditation and float tanks and scheduling massages and getting manicures and pedicures and taking a vacation and taking Fridays off and hugging your kids more and having more sex. All those things are great too, but we're really trying to get geeky here with you guys, because most people that come to us, as you mentioned, they've already been to 5, 10, 15, 20 practitioners. They've done the massage and they've been through the talk therapy and they've been to so many other practitioners. They need the nitty gritty granular stuff like this that's really going to get them better. So if you guys are listening for the lifestyle stuff, we try to integrate that, and that is important. But ultimately, most people are doing a lot of that, and they've tried, and they're still suffering. Let me pull something up on rhodiola. This is pretty cool. I told you years ago how rhodiola changed my life. And this is a paper that just concludes that rhodiola is a very effective, potent herb for treating mild to moderate depression. And we're talking in 6 weeks. So this is not a long thing. Like people think it's going to take years and years and years. I'm not saying that if you've got mold, you won't still be depressed. If you've got Lyme, you're still going to be depressed. Like that can happen. But what if I can just give you a tool which is going to boost you? Let's say it reduces your depression by 30% enough for you to get back into the gym, and now you're exercising. Now you get the natural endorphin boost, and then you feel more confident. So now you go on a date with this woman you've been wanting to go on a date with, and now you have more fun and oxytocin because you're bonding. But this whole snowball effect happened all because I just gave you this herb to pull you out of a dark place. So that's really what we're trying to do.
Absolutely. So we talked about some of the herbs, some of the nutrients, some of our big favorite ones. Of course, movement is going to be helpful. Again, you got to figure out where your level is. If you're chronically inflamed, movement may be too much, too stressful, and put you in a more catabolic place because you're breaking down tissue. Figure out where you're at. If you're at a good place, you can lift some weights, do a little bit of interval sprinting, whether it's a walk, run, walk, sprint. You can do a rower. We like rowers because of the extension, and also there's less impact on the joint. So if you're already inflamed, you're not going to create more inflammation. You can start with some bands or some gentle lifting of weights to kind of, find that 8 to 12, rep movement that's going to give you a good muscle breakdown, give you a little soreness. That's good. Getting 10,000 steps a day. These are all simple strategies. We don't have to overthink it. You don't need a super crazy customized plan out of the gates. Just get some good movement. Make sure you have good form. If you're not sure, you can always start with walking or yoga or something more gentle. And you can always check out some YouTube videos and do some band work or some cable work. Or I like the new Tonal. It's another good at-home device for lifting. It's really good. So, just get enough movement in there to get your muscles a little bit sore.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got my row machine right here. I just try to put it on as heavy of a setting as I feel confident with. It's not going to injure me, where I can still go, and I almost use it like a sprinting device. I don't necessarily just go slow and steady. I try to just kind of sharp, relatively fast, kind of like a sprint row movement. And I tell you, it can be depleting, but man, I've heard many people talk about this. Like when you want to get out of your mind, if you're ruminating, if you're worried, if you're thinking negative, you're going through all these bad things in your life and bad symptoms, and you do these pity parties for yourself. When you're exercising physically, it almost shuts that brain off completely to where you can just focus on like how hard this exercise, how hard this movement is.
I 100% agree, 100%. Now, outside of the gates here, right, there could be some hidden issues that we're not addressing, and you have to see a good functional medicine provider over it. There could be, you may need to look at your adrenals. Your adrenals could be more depleted, like that patient Evan just showed, where they have significant kind of a reverse cortisol pattern. It's good to know your adrenal pattern because if you have chronic issues, you want to know, hey, this is where I'm at. One, it gives you a timeline of how long it may take to heal. That person may look like a 6 to 12 month journey on that. Also, it gives you the ability to have, realistic expectations, good timeline. Also, something like that, we'd probably want to do a retest on someone that's that out of balance to make sure they're back in balance. We'd also want to look at hidden stressors that could be behind that, whether it's mold, whether it's pests, whether it's toxicity issues that aren't being addressed, whether it's gut issues. We talked about a lot of these nutrients have to get eaten. So if our diet's poor, there's a problem. But also, what if it's good now, but we're not breaking down and absorbing it? That's where we'd have to do deeper testing on the functional medicine side to see how you're doing digestive-wise with HCl and enzymes, see if there's any gut bug issues. And then we can also do other intercellular nutrient tests, whether it's organic acids or NutriEval, look at other kind of intercellular nutrients. So there could be some other hidden stressors going on there. I always say just kind of start from the ground and work your way up. Start with the low-hanging fruit, keep it simple, because that provides a good foundation anyway. But, if you have chronic issues, you definitely want to reach out to someone like Evan, evanbrand.com, or someone like myself, Dr. J, justinhealth.com, for the deeper issues. And we'll put links down below so y'all can reach out. Evan, anything else you want to add before we wrap things up?
Yeah, I think for people that are in a short-term acute stress, they have to travel for a wedding.
Mm-hmm.
They're maybe going on a honeymoon. Sounds fun, could be stressful. Travel, new food, new water supply. They're new parents. They've got small children. Those are situations where you may come in, not small children, because those are long-term stress. You and I can attest to
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah.
honeymoon, new marriage, whatever. So those acute stressors, you could probably do some of these formulas, whether it's Tonkat or Magnolia or ashwagandha, rhodiola, holy basil. There's many options: extra magnesium, B6, GABA, taurine, inositol. These things are great, but if you have been stressed and feeling overwhelmed for 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, 20, 25 years and beyond, you really don't just want to go try to get rhodiola and get your way out of it. It's not going to happen. I've tried.
Mhm.
I took so many supplements when I was sick, and it helped me to stay alive, and it helped me to continue to work and be up on my feet. But I knew that ultimately I was missing something. And it wasn't until I really cleared the parasites, cleared the H. pylori, my energy started to come up. Like, I was on rhodiola while I had parasites. I was still tired. I was less tired, but I was still tired. And I think the problem is, like, naturopathic medicine, so naturopaths specifically, they may come in and instead of, Cortef or cortisol, they give you licorice and ashwagandha, which is great, but then it stops there. So you really have to ask the question, why? Why did I get myself into this? How did I get into this? Was this the bad relationship, the moldy apartment, the college dorm that got me sick? And I think people need to just ask why a few more times. So, like, I'm tired. Okay, here's rhodiola. But it could be, hey, I'm tired. Well, why are you tired? Well, because I'm stressed. Why are you stressed? Because I'm in a bad relationship. Okay, so we need to work on that. And if people keep asking why, usually you're going to uncover some stuff. And I just encourage people, don't be afraid to look in those dark spots. Don't be afraid to look in those corners
100%.
where there's some cobwebs of things that you've been emotionally shoving away. As you mentioned, dusting it away or putting it under the carpet.
Yep.
Eventually, those things are going to weigh you down.
Yep. And someone in the chat talked about a Epstein-Barr virus kind of plummeting their energy recently. Well, when it comes to Epstein-Barr and some of these viruses like Epstein-Barr or cytomegalovirus, it's very rarely the virus just comes out of the blue and just knocks you on your butt, right? Usually there's some level of depletion going on, and it's the straw that breaks the camel's back. And so, yeah, there's different supports we can do to address viral issues, whether it's silver or monolaurin or reishi, right? Different herbs and nutrients, cat's claw. But you got to look at how did your immune system become so compromised and susceptible to it? And you tend to have to work backwards and fix all of those issues that led up to this point. It's very rarely something just coming out of the blue and doing all of it. It's usually a level of susceptibility that you incurred, and then this virus came in. So you have to really address everything, never just one thing.
Yeah, I've seen that too. And I've seen it with a lot of things that are probably still controversial on YouTube. But we've seen things that people put in their bodies that all of a sudden reactivate Epstein-Barr and other problems.
Yep.
We've seen this in celebrities. We've seen this in clients. So, yeah,
Yep,
it's
absolutely.
totally happening.
But guys, we want to give you actionable information. A lot of people out there, it's just like sales, market, leave you kind of hanging. I want everyone to kind of listen and be like, all right, here's some foundational things. When we're talking and doing a long podcast, it's super easy to get overwhelmed. So just pick one or two things, execute, action. And then if you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed or you want to take next steps, you have Evan and I for resources. It's all about educating. It's all about empowerment. So we'll put links down below where you guys can reach out and work on taking the next steps. But worst case, just continue to take action. We're here to help.
Absolutely. So go take a bath, do your lavender, your Epsom salt and all that. Get your mind right. But then ultimately, you got to figure out what's under the hood.
Love it. Very good, Evan. Wait, great chatting with you, man. Glad we're back in the saddle.
You too. Take it easy.
Talk to you soon, brother. Take care, everyone.
Bye now.
Bye, y'all.